It was on an MLS podcast, so let's not take it too serious. This is going to come down to set pieces and size. No matter what anybody tries to tell you, size matters. Welcome back, lads, ladies, and other False Nine Show listeners. Thank you so much for joining us. We had an absolutely insane day of football coming out of Group C and D on match day 3 of the group stages of the World Cup. Each of these teams had their last day of group football, and it was a big one. We had lots of different storylines, ranging from qualifying based off of fair play, France's shaky back line, to a dark horse exiting the tournament early. Without any further ado, let's get into it. Kicking things off in France and Tunisia, where Tunisia probably had the greatest match in the history of Tunisian football for their national team. 1-0 victory over France, an upset victory here. That being said, it was certainly controversial as Antoine Griezmann had a goal that was called back on VAR for offsides after the game had already ended. Yes, you heard that correctly. After the game had already ended, a goal was called back by VAR. No, you're not allowed to do that. The France FA has already lodged a complaint with FIFA about this goal. Now, we haven't heard what FIFA's statement or FIFA's decision is regarding this, but we probably will within the next couple of days, certainly before the knockout stages. It kind of covers an important precedent for the future of matchmaking decisions at the end of games, and it's something you kind of need to work out now. Basically, what had happened was Antoine Griezmann was in an offsides position when the ball was played into the box with several defenders and France players in the immediate area, but Griezmann was offsides. A Tunisian defender is the first one on the end of it and heads the ball up into the air after Griezmann had stepped back into an onside position, and he volleys it home. So the on-field referee at play called it onside because he just missed it. Whatever, that happens. Let's not blame the linesman here. So France goes crazy. Everyone is celebrating. The Tunisian supporters are all crying in the stands, understandably. And all of this is going on. The match ends, and then the referee gets called over. This happened in like the 8th minute of a 9-minute stoppage time period. And the match ends and the referee gets called over to the monitor. So he goes over to the monitor, realizes the mistake has been made, and then rules the goal out. However, you cannot do that. FIFA has it explicitly stated that if you're going to review a situation after the match has ended, it can only be for deliberate and violent actions, things like red card offenses or attacking another player. Those are the only sorts of things where a player is going to get sent off. Those are the only sorts of things where you are allowed to review it after the match has ended. Because this is just an offsides infraction, that is not allowed. And so yes, the referee ended up making the right decision in terms of the on-field action, the on-field result, he made the right decision. But ultimately, he broke the rules in order to do so, and that is why France has lodged this complaint. And they will probably get it overturned because it's an important precedent for the future. While this goal was an offsides goal and shouldn't count, there's a double negative here. The referees are making several mistakes. Namely, the most important one is calling the goal back after the game had already ended. And so for that reason, in my opinion, France is going to end up winning this case with FIFA. Basically, this is just another really messy VAR situation. Nice job, FIFA. Continuing to impress us with this World Cup. Yeah, this game was actually a lot of fun and really interesting to watch. It was unimpressive from France. It's kind of their first moment of weakness or a match where they've looked vulnerable. Now, to be fair, they went out and they rotated almost all of their important players. Mandanda got a chance in goal. Steven Mandanda, which is really cool to see. He's a keeper who's been around the game for a very long time in France and in the Premier League. I think he's at Rennes right now or possibly Marseille. He's a journeyman. He's bounced around a lot. and he's an impressive player, so it was kind of cool to actually get to see him play in the World Cup for the first time. I think he's like 38 now. So that was a really cool see if you're like a fan of the game. Used to be a big keeper for Crystal Palace before they got Guaita. So if you're a Palace fan or Premier League fan, you might know him. Aside from that, no one really was particularly impressive for France. The back line kind of struggled. The defense was really shaky. Yusuf Fofana in the midfield was really poor. Tchouaméni didn't have his best showing either. Matteo Guendouzi kind of played all over the pitch, though. He literally played at times left wing, at times right wing. Sometimes he was a cam. Sometimes he was just a normal box-to-box midfielder. So that was interesting if you know Guendouzi and if you like that sort of thing. Seeing players be really versatile like that, I enjoy that, and I thought that was a lot of fun to watch. But mostly, the credit goes to Tunisia for this game because they were just insane. It was like, I think the third or fourth minute, Lauduni, their midfielder, had a slide tackle, and he just immediately gets up and starts going crazy, pumping the energy up, and you could just tell that Tunisia was up for it. They did end up getting their goal from Wabi Kazri after they won the ball back in the midfield, and then Kazri was able to break through on goal, dribbled through the French defense, and put it into the side net past Mandanda. It was a really cool moment to see because he's another guy who's kind of been around the block. You may recognize him from his time at Sunderland. He also had a good spell at Rennes and at Saint Etienne as well. Actually played with William Saliba for a little bit at Saint Etienne. And he's a kind of a Tunisian cult hero, and he did his country justice today. I saw some people say after the game that the decision to rotate by France was like poor sportsmanship or whatever. Honestly, I think you need to calm the F down if that's what you feel. It was on an MLS podcast, so let's not take it too seriously. But I think that's a bit ridiculous. Rotation is important. Rotation is fine. They had already qualified. They had already clinched the group. They had nothing left to play for. Putting in some new players and to get them blooded, to get them some experience, some exposure, and possibly some form, try out rotations. Yeah, I have no problem with that. Go for it, Deschamps. Don't listen to the haters who say otherwise. I also think they'll bounce back fine from this. I mean, this is just kind of a speed bump. It's not really anything too significant. I mean, you saw that with England as well when they had a bad game against the U.S. And Spain, I think, will bounce back. Brazil, Argentina appears to have recovered really strongly from their shaky start to the World Cup. So I have full faith, full confidence that France is going to be just fine going into the knockout stages. Aside from that VAR controversy, this was a really interesting game and a lot of fun to watch. And I think part of that is because it was happening concurrently with the Denmark and Australia game. Now, going into today, all three teams that aren't France in this group were fighting for second place in Group D. So you have Denmark and Tunisia going into today on 1 point each, and Australia going into today with 3 points. So basically, Denmark needed to beat Australia and France to beat Tunisia in order to advance. Tunisia needed to beat France and Denmark to beat Australia in order to advance, because then they would advance through tiebreakers, and Australia just needed to win in order to advance. Now we know how it played out. Australia did get the victory over Denmark, but the first half in both games ended up scoreless, and we went into halftime in both 0-0. And there was a lot on the line, a lot of tension. You could feel that. The energy around everybody was really, really crazy. So Tunisia gets their goal, Wabi Kazri, in I think the 58th or 60th minute. Almost immediately after Tunisia gets their goal, Australia scores. Literally 87 seconds later in the stadium 40 miles away, Australia gets the goal over Denmark. And the score ended up finishing 1-0 in both matches, which meant Australia goes through. And I think that's kind of a perfect segue into talking about Denmark and Australia. The only other thing that I wanted to touch on real quick was these Tunisian fans. They were incredible. They had a lovely atmosphere the entire time, brought a lot of energy. You could tell that this team really matters to them. And I think it's a good sign for the future of the sport in Tunisia. Not many of us follow the African Champions League, including myself, but the little research that I do know has indicated that a lot of Tunisian clubs go far in the African Champions League. There is structure to this domestic league. There is structure to this country. So it's promising signs for the country and for the national team that they could improve in the near future. So that's going to lead us healthily into Denmark and Australia, where there was a lot less controversy, although the emotions were still running just as high. I think there's a lot of reason to be really proud and excited for this Australia team. What they have done here is remarkable, and to contrast that with the disappointment in Denmark. A lot of people, myself included, had them pegged as dark horses. Jesus, me sideways. A lot of people, myself included, had them pegged as dark horses for the tournament. Some people even thought they were going to go on and win the whole thing. They had a really impressive performance at the Euros last year where they made it to the semifinals, and their team has really only gotten better. They were missing a few important players. They didn't really have anybody step up in the striker position, so that is something that we need to acknowledge and talk about, that none of their strikers were really scoring or playing well, even for that matter. Christian Eriksen didn't have his best performances either. I think in general the team looked very languid, slow, unenthused. In my opinion, this is due to the energy around the Denmark FA right now. So for those of you who don't know, Denmark is kind of leading, or the Denmark FA rather, is leading this movement against this World Cup right now. They're planning protests. They're talking about potentially leaving UEFA or leaving FIFA as a form of protest. And Denmark, the supporters, are really strong in their protests against this Qatar World Cup for violation of human rights, of course. So I think that this kind of is a distraction for this Denmark team and is weighing heavily on their minds, or at least they're playing like it, because they're playing like they don't have any interest. I think if I were a Danish supporter, I would be incredibly disappointed in that there's this whole stink, this whole hubbubaloo prior to the kickoff of the World Cup where Denmark might withdraw, Denmark might protest, Denmark might not partake, and then they go in and they basically might as well not have because they didn't show up for 3 games. That's just sad and borderline disrespectful to these supporters. So there's a lot of reason to be disappointed with the performance of this Denmark national team, and potentially some reasons and excuses for why it was so bad as well. But Australia, though, on the other hand, has been nothing short of impressive, and I'm so proud and happy for these Kangaroos here. Those of you who don't know, Australia was the last team to qualify for the World Cup. They had to win a playoff game in order to make it, and there have been some people kind of advocating, because the 2026 World Cup is going to have 48 teams, there have been some people kind of advocating to take spots away from Asia, from Africa, from North America, from CONCACAF, to take spots away from these other smaller footballing continents. And I think that Australia's performance is a good example of why that is a really bad idea. Australia didn't really have any business advancing out of this group. They play hoofball, that is it. They're going to play big up top, long balls, try and win on set pieces, that sort of thing. And they managed to beat both Denmark and Tunisia. They're very impressive organizations, especially Denmark on paper is a really good team. And Australia just bullied them off the park. It was really, really well done from them. It's definitely going to be really difficult for them to advance any further than the round of 16, as they immediately have drawn Argentina, who are one of the favorites. They're my personal favorite. I think Argentina's going to win it. A lot of people's favorites to win this whole tournament. So it's going to be difficult for them to advance any further. Nonetheless, they should be really proud of themselves, and they should go and take the game to Argentina as much as possible. Don't back down. Play your game. Play big. Play strong. Defend. I think that they're going to try. They're certainly going to do their best to really make Argentina's life as difficult as possible this weekend. A cool little storyline to follow is just kind of the absence of Martin Boyle. He is a Scottish-born Australian international who plays as a winger for Hibs, for Hibernian FC in Edinburgh. He's a really good player. He's kind of underrated in my opinion. He's one of the better players in the Scottish Premiership. He was last year. He was in Saudi Arabia getting a big paycheck, and then he's come back to Hibs this year. He's kind of a legend, or cult hero, not a legend, a cult hero for them. Really well liked. He's been with the club for a while until he had that 6-month stint in Saudi Arabia where he got his paycheck. last year, so he's kind of a cult hero for them. However, he received a massive injury prior to this World Cup, wasn't able to make it, and he would have been a very important player for this Australia team. He traveled anyway, though, and he was right there celebrating with the boys on the pitch after they managed to beat Denmark and secure their qualification to the round of 16. Just a really wholesome and uplifting story there. I've actually seen him play live. It was against Rangers. Yeah, he got a goal. Played really well. That wraps up Group D for us today, guys. Really exciting stuff. A lot of drama. A lot to play for today for all of the teams in the group, with the exception of France. So Australia will go on to play Argentina, and France will be playing Poland. Let's get into Group C now. Group C was far and away the most excitement I have had watching this World Cup. Absolutely incredible. I went to the pub actually to watch the games today, and the atmosphere around it was amazing. So I live in Los Angeles, for those of you who don't know, and there's a big Mexican community, and as a USA fan myself, I do support Mexico when we aren't playing them, because it's important that other CONCACAF teams do well, because it just brings the entire association up. So I do support Mexico. And Mexico, Canada, Costa Rica, all CONCACAF teams, when they aren't playing the actual USA, or when it doesn't hinder the US. And the Mexican fans are just, it's some of the best footballing culture in the world. I mean, I've been to England, I've been to Italy, I've been to Spain. The Mexican fans are freaking incredible, man. They are up there with the best of them. They are just wild, passionate, enthusiastic in every single way, and it is just an absolute joy. And I'm honestly gutted. That their streak of qualifying to the round of 16 is over with this World Cup. It's such a bummer for them, especially because they were so close. It came down to, or it looked like it was going to come down to for a little bit, fair play. That's crazy, man. That's absolutely crazy. Of course, there is the fair play precedent in the last World Cup when it was Japan qualifying over Senegal because of fair play. So it's not really kind of what anybody wants to go out on. Fair play would be a massive bummer. Luckily, or unfortunately, I guess, a slightly less heartbreaking, I guess you could say, is Saudi Arabia did get a late goal in order to firmly knock Mexico out of the tie with Poland due to goal difference. So that was a really massive disappointment for them. But for a while there, it was 2-0 Argentina over Poland and 2-0 Mexico over Saudi Arabia. So going into these matches, Argentina was on 3 points. Poland was atop the group with 4. Saudi Arabia was level with Argentina on 3 points, and Mexico had 1. So in order for Mexico to qualify, basically, more or less, the entire group was up for grabs. In order for Mexico to qualify, they needed to win against Saudi Arabia, and Poland needed to lose, and there needed to be a goal differential swing of 4. Of 5. 4 was not going to cut it. They were really, really, really close. Argentina absolutely peppered the Polish goal. Wojciech Szczesny had a big save against a penalty from Lionel Messi, and Mexico likewise peppered the Saudi Arabian goal. That keeper is incredible. He played really well, saved a great free kick, had a couple of close range efforts that he was able to get in front of, and all in all, I was on the edge of my seat watching this game, just could barely contain it, going crazy every couple of seconds because there was a new attack or a shot on goal or something. It was just absolutely wild. And for a while there, when it was 2-0 and 2-0, it looked like it might come down to fair play and yellow cards, in which Poland had 4 yellow cards and Mexico had 7 coming into the day, so there needed to be a 3 yellow card swing. Poland did pick up another yellow card during this time, which brought the total tally to 7 versus 5. However, Saudi Arabia got a late goal in stoppage time and ended Mexico's dreams of qualifying to the next round of the World Cup. This was easily the most dominant display that we've seen from Mexico so far. I mean, they had 26 total shots, 11 of them being on target. They created 15 big chances throughout this match. So there were goals there for the taking. Now, unfortunately, they weren't able to actually put it in the net when they really needed to. Although it wasn't for lack of trying. Like I had said earlier, there was a big free kick save from the Saudi Arabian keeper Al Owais, who he's really made a name for himself after the performances against both Argentina and now Mexico. He's really played well in this tournament and represented his country quite well. However, it wasn't really meant to be for Mexico, and they ended up conceding late in stoppage time to Saudi Arabia, which ended their hopes of advancing to the next stage of the World Cup. Before as dominant as Mexico was, Argentina was clearly the best team on display today. No questions about it. They did have an early penalty saved in the first half by Wojciech Szczęsny off of Lionel Messi. It was a controversial penalty call as well. It went to a VAR review, probably the wrong decision, but all's well that ends well. Karma came around and Big Woj stepped up, and he's the first keeper in World Cup history to save 2 penalties, not including penalty shootouts, that mind you. So big shout out to him, former Gooner, really good player, arguably a world-class keeper. And if Poland is going to go far in this tournament, it's largely going to be because of Wojciech and Robert Lewandowski. Argentina, though, was excellent and were not to be stopped. They had 23 total shots with 17 created chances and 12 shots on target. They were incredible. Enzo Fernandez is an absolute revelation in the midfield for Argentina and for Benfica. Now, anybody who's been following the Portuguese League or Benfica or the Champions League knows that Enzo Fernandez has largely been impressive. But today he started for Argentina, and he was excellent, absolutely excellent. Alongside Alexis McAllister and Rodrigo de Paul in this 3-man midfield, they brought a lot of energy, a lot of balance. They were very creative in the final third, as well as doing their due diligence when out of possession. Really, this looks to be a good setup, and this might be Argentina's best 11, if we're being honest. Julian Alvarez, also stepped up into the starting lineup for his first start for Argentina and got a goal. Played really well. Messi didn't quite get his goal, but he played really well nonetheless, and that partnership with Di Maria is pretty much timeless at this point. We're just so used to seeing them dominate flanks together for the last 10-15 years now. It's crazy to think that it's coming to an end for both of them. So hopefully they can go out on a high note and bring this trophy home to South America. So this was, of course, a match between the two teams who did eventually end up qualifying to the next round, to the round of 16. So I think we're starting to see how these teams are shaping up. So for Poland, they're definitely relying on being hard to break down defensively. They have Glick at the back and Szczęsny, as well as a really good keeper. Christian Bielik playing in the center of the park alongside Krychowiak, and then Robert Lewandowski up top with Piotr Zielinski tending to be the main creative force for this Polish side. We know that they're going to be difficult to break down, playing with 3 at the back, playing in 4-4-2s, that sort of thing, and trying to nick goals off of set pieces or try and be bullies, generally speaking. But they've got France in the round of 16, and I don't see Poland advancing anywhere past France. I know France stumbled today, but I just don't see Poland finding ways to get a result or advancing any further than the round of 16. Argentina, on the other hand, is very impressive, and they look like they are starting to build some momentum. Now, I personally think this was their best 11 that they could have put out. Maybe would have changed it around a little bit. I like Alvarez coming in. I like Lautaro Martinez coming in off the bench. He almost got on the end of a couple of chances. It just wasn't meant to be for him. But I like the depth that Argentina has. Correa, Paredes, Martinez, Dybala coming in off of the bench to make an impact in this game. And this 3-man midfield, I was just so impressed. I mean, they dominated. They were so incredible. Alexis McAllister, how the hell is he Argentinian, by the way? He's got a last name like McAllister, and he's like more ginger than I am. I mean, really, how is this guy a freaking Argentinian? But He is, and he's really starting to come into his own. I think playing under Graham Potter, he was really able to develop his all-around game, and there isn't really anything he can't do. He contributed with the first goal. He broke the deadlock today. Played really well in general alongside Enzo Fernandez and Rodrigo de Paul, who also looked back to his normal self, being that enforcer as well as a creative force in the center of the park. Messi and Di Maria have excellent link-up between them. They have chemistry, they know where they're going to be, and they really draw defenders in, which I think is key. I think the fact that Messi and Di Maria are magnets for defenders opens up space for players like Alvarez, Fernandez, and McAllister to crash this box and get goals. Now, in terms of the back line, there is a bit of a controversy here because they benched Lisandro Martinez in favor of Christian Romero. I personally like this. Now, the controversial one is Otamendi, and whether or not Otamendi should be playing in this Argentina side. I mean, there's certainly leadership and experience there, and I think you want that in a World Cup side. For me, I would probably more so consider bringing off Acuna for Lisandro Martinez, playing Lisandro Martinez at left back, and then bringing Acuna on as a sub, where he's then fresh legs. He is a little bit older than he used to be now. I know we're used to the Marcus Acuna that has a lot more energy. He just isn't there anymore. He did get subbed off early in this game. So I think that's a potential thing to consider, is putting in Lisandro Martinez at left back and subbing on Acuna later in matches. I think that could work really well for them. Aside from that, I think Romero has to be in the starting lineup. Pretty much the only thing that's keeping him from being considered a world-class player is his fitness. He's so good in every way, and I hate Spurs. I hate Spurs so much, so it bothers me to throw compliments at one of their players, but Romero is a very, very talented boy. He's so good with the ball at his feet, and he is just a dog in defense. I mean, you're not going to get by him. He's incredible. He really is. And so for me, he has to be playing. I don't think Lisandro Martinez is better than him. I don't even think that Lisandro Martinez really comes close to him. I think Romero is a huge difference maker, especially in international football in the World Cup, where so much of this is going to come down to set pieces and size. No matter what anybody tries to tell you, size matters. And so Christian Romero, for me, has to be in the starting 11 for Argentina in the round of 16 against Australia. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. That is going to wrap things up for today. Truly incredible day of football. So exciting, so entertaining, and hopefully tomorrow will be just as riveting. And I will see you all again for a check-in tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, please leave a comment, a like, subscribe. It really helps the channel, guys. We're trying to break into that YouTube algorithm, so it really does. Any little bit that you can do makes a difference, even if you just comment one word. So thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Échale, mijo.